So our next element of music that we're going to be exploring is melody. Melody is a succession of pitches. Pitches are tones, and those tones can be either high or low. And the best way for me to help you understand what that looks like as well as sounds like, we're going to be using the piano to help demonstrate those. So this is the keyboard. Has 88 keys for a standard piano. To the left are low tones. To the right of the middle are higher pitches. In order for us to be able to differentiate between tones, Pythagoras, a Greek mathematician, used math and frequencies to establish a method of tuning and organizing pitches that we use today. There's a musical alphabet that we use to identify the names of notes. Each of these notes has a name. Obviously, we don't have 88 letters of the alphabet. We are going to be using 7 letters of the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then we use them over and over, and what that does is those 8 notes, which is called an octave, octo meaning 8, like octopus or octagon, 8 sides, 8 legs. We have an octave, which is 8 notes, starting from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then we go back to A again. A, B, C, E, F, G. Back to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so forth and so on. Now, if you notice, those were the same pitches, only an octave, 8 notes higher. So those are all C's. This is all A's, B's, C's, D's, E, F, G, A, B, C. So when I go from left to right, I'm going from low to high. If I go from right to left, it's going from high to low. Now we see that there are groups of black keys. 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. So between an octave, those 8 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we have also black keys, which we'll talk about the names of those later, but the difference between the white key to the white key versus the white key to the black key is that the white key to the black key is what we call a half a step. And then from the black to half a step, that's a half a step, that's a half a step. So these are all half steps, and there's 12 half steps within the octave. When we make a scale, they're a combination of half steps and whole steps. 2 half steps equal a whole step. So there's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That makes our scale. So now that we know the pitches are low to high on the piano, and we use the musical alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G, now we're going to talk about how we are able to make those make sense about making a melody. So I have my staff maker right here. This is what's called a staff. It has 5 lines, counting from the bottom up. So this would be the first line, second line, third line, fourth line, and fifth line. So if I say the first line, it's the bottom line. And those 5 lines make 4 spaces. Again, numbering from the bottom up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. When we play the notes in succession, one after another, we place them on the staff. with line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. So when we look at these, when they go up by step, which is how I showed you on the piano, this would be the letter E, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And it goes up and down by step and sounds like a scale. Basically E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And that's what it sounds like when you go from step to step, up or down, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. So in order to accommodate all of the pitches on the staff, this is only 8. We have 88 keys. So for now, if we go higher, we would draw what's called a ledger line to extend the staff either up or down. So this is a line, space, and this is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now that we know that a staff, 5 lines and 4 spaces, is the tool that we use to place the notes on so that we can differentiate between high and low. This is the grand staff, and initially there was a middle line which made this just one 11-line graph right here. But we took that middle line out, so that we can see the space in between there, high and low. This is called the grand staff. So this is the grand staff. It's the treble clef and the bass clef, and it's together, held together with a bracket. Remember that we number the lines and the spaces of the staff from the bottom up. So we have our line 1, line 2, 3, 4, 5, space 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing on the bass clef. The instruments that read this are the piano and the harp, basically where you're using the right hand and the left hand. The right hand, the right side of the piano, is the treble, the higher pitches we talked about. So they'll be written on the treble clef, and then the left hand, which is the lower part of the keyboard, will read notes that are on the bass clef. What you have here is what I played on the piano before, and it starts over here with a ledger line, E, line, space, F, G line, A space, B line, C space, D line, E, F, G, A, B, and then we see our middle C. Call that C Saturn because it looks like the Saturn, the planet. And that's the middle line I was talking about that was eliminated. So we call B and D on a space, and then this goes up, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we see how we use just those 7 letters of the alphabet over and over again just to create the scale in different octaves from lower to higher. Now, this is called the treble clef, but initially it was called the G clef because when they had all those 11 lines, they would need to say, oh, this is G, and this is C, and this is F, in order to understand what that meant. This was before they had these clef signs. So what they did was on that particular line, they wrote in very early medieval writing, was a G. And that G basically evolved into what we know as the treble clef. And notice that the curly Q here is on the line. This is what the treble clef which is really the G clef, looks like in modern time. And if you notice that that is the G note. So we can understand the name of the note just by looking at the clef and all the notes that go up and down from there. Like, of course, we know that line is G. So that's the end of our musical alphabet. The next one would be A, then B, then C, then D, and so forth and so on. This middle line was C. Now, the lower or bass clef, as I talked to you before, is on, I'll come on this side, is an F clef. Started out with the letter F and then gradually evolved into where the big circle here and the two circles here really focus in on that line right there, and that's F. So when we really don't need these letters when we're reading, because we know automatically that that's the G line and that is the F line, and then we have middle C. 5 lines, 4 spaces, treble clef, bass clef, treble G clef, bass F clef, connected by the bracket. This is called the grand staff. So this is a chart that actually shows the notes on the grand staff and where those notes are on the keyboard. This is middle C. So that note here, there's 2 black keys, and the note before that black key is C, and it looks like that. And going up the scale from line, space, go C, D, E, F, G, and there's a direct correlation. This G is that note, and it's that pitch. So just like we have in language, the letter B sounds B, so this note represents that key on this instrument. Obviously, in other instruments, it's going to be somewhere else on the instrument, however you play the instrument, but the tone, C, will always be the same, no matter what instrument you play. I have here what's called the melodica, and it's a keyboard. Notice 3 black, 2 black, 3 black, 2 black. And as I said, the white key to the left of the 2 black keys sounds C. So this would be the note C. And no matter what instrument is playing, when they read that note C, that's the pitch that they will sound. So it's universal to all instruments. So what we're going to do now is go on over to the grand staff. Actually, we're just going to go to the treble staff right now, not the grand staff. I'm going to put a treble clef here. And that says we are going to be writing the pitches that are to the right of middle C on the piano. Middle C and higher. And as we said, that note right there is C, and I'm going to place it right here, middle C. And then the next space will be D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that's a C scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Those are the notes of the scale. We've heard that scale a lot. It's a very common one. It's called a major diatonic scale. It's the most common scale. There are a lot of scales. The succession of any notes are scales. We have a chromatic scale, which remember we talked about half steps. And that's going from the white to the black key, and just every single note that is the neighbor to it. And that's called a chromatic scale, and that's just half steps. And then we have whole tone scales where there are whole steps. Remember we talked about 2/2 being a whole. So whole tone would be we have pentatonic scale, 5 notes. Penta meaning 5 are all the black keys. So what we have here is a treble clef written on a staff, and what I did was write a scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And the names of the notes are down here. We call those different names. We call them letter names or numbers too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. We call them do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And what I put over here are what we're going to call the intervals. Interval is the distance between 2 notes. So we're going to start with do. 1 to 2, and there's 1. I put them right on top of each other and played together. I'll play C first, and then I'll play C and D. Here's C. And then I'll play C and D separately. And then I'll play C and D together. That's the interval of a second. Kind of clashes a little bit. We call that dissonance. When music, 2 notes sound together and clash, could be even more than 2 notes, like this. All those notes together create a dissonance. It kind of has the same meaning of the word dissonance. It clashes. We call that a second. Now I'm going to play the C with the 3rd step. C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3. I'll play them separately. And now together. Sounds better than the dissonance. We call it consonants. Consonants, notes that blend well together. So the second, C and D, clashes. We'll call that a dissonance. A third, C and E, 1, 2, 3, we call a third, and that's consonants. Now, C to F. Kind of sounds like the beginning to Here Comes the Bride. That's then played separately. That's a 4th. And here's those 2 notes together. And that's do. 1 played together is a 4th. Now the next note, our G, played with the C, the 2 notes together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the space of 5 tones, always counting the first and the last one, is a 5th. Oh, it's the Star Wars. And played together. Okay, that's the interval of a 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 5. The interval of a 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My body lies over the ocean, or NBC. That's 1, 6, 4. So see how you put notes right after another and it creates a little tune. And 1 and 7 is another dissonance. Listen. Together. Kind of clashes, doesn't it? Now I played notes that were separate. C and D. Almost starts like a melody. We call that a melodic interval when they're played separately, because they make up a part of a melody. When we play them together, it creates harmony. And we are going to discuss that in the harmony unit, but we call the two tones played together harmonic intervals. So we have melodic, where they're played separately, and then harmonic, where they're played together. Melodic, harmonic. Do, fa. That was do, la, and then together. Do, sol, and then when we play them together, they're harmonic. All right? If I were to put this together, I can follow the bouncing finger. Do, do, sol, sol, la, la, sol, fa, fa, mi, mi, re, re, do. Or I can use numbers. 1, 1, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1. So that's how we put them together, by one note after another, and on the staff it represents what pitches they are. So now that we know and understand the placement of the notes on the staff, they have letter names and they have these shapes that designate what pitches we play. We put them together with rhythms, and we then created melody, something that we worked on a little bit, we touched on in rhythm, and that was meter. When we have whole, half, quarter, and eighth notes, this is where the fraction comes in a little bit. That's a whole, that's a half, that's a quarter, and that's an eighth. And so when we have what we call a time signature or meter signature with two numbers that are put right after the clef sign on the treble and bass clef, I'm putting 4, 4. When we spoke about rhythm, I did 4 beats to a measure, and that quarter note gets 1 beat. Well, this equals that particular symbol that's up there. 4 beats to a measure, and then if we take this away and put the 4 down here, that means the quarter note gets 1 beat. So the top number is the meter. How many beats in a measure? And remember, we talked about the measure being in between the 2 bar lines. So how many beats in a measure? And then the bottom number is what kind of note value, what kind of note gets 1 beat. So this was 4 beats to a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. This means the exact same thing. 4 beats to a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. We can go 4, 8, 4 beats to a measure, and an eighth note gets 1 beat. We can go 2, 4, 2 beats to a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. We can go 2, 8, 2 beats to a measure, and an eighth note gets 1 beat. So the bottom number is what kind of note gets the pulse, gets the beat. So the most common time signature, meter signature, they mean the same thing because it gives us the meter, quadruple meter. The most common is 4/4 time. Therefore, we call that common time. And common time is abbreviated by a C. So I could actually take those 4s out of there and put a C. And that would mean the same thing. Common time, 4/4. All right, so now that we have established our staff, our treble clef, our meter, 4 counts, 4 beats to a measure, and we know that where the notes go on the staff is the pitches, I wrote out a very familiar tune with C, C, G, G, A, G, F, F, E, E, D, D, C. So we have our 4 beats to a measure. 2, 3, 4. Here's 1, 2, 3. Remember, we have to hold that for 2 counts. That's 1, 2. But it's beat number 3 and 4. See that? This is beat 1, 2, 3, 4. Beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and we hold it to beat 4. And I want this not to be the end of the piece, because that's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, I wonder what you are. It's not the end, so we're not going to put a double bar there. We're not going to put a double bar, which means it's the end of the song. So you see here how we have notes and rhythms put together create a melody. Again, this is the first scale step. 1, 1, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1. That's if we number our scale from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So music theory accommodates every sound, every pitch that we want to play or perform. And a way of accommodating that is to use what we call accidentals. Accidentals alter the pitch. The flat, which looks like this, looks like a, I guess like a B, lowers the pitch by a half a step. So if we have this note here, which is A, here's A. If I were to put a flat in front of it, here's A, it would lower it to the black note right in front of it. So if I play an A and then an A flat, this is the A first, and then I put a flat sign next to it, it's going to lower it a half step to this. So that we call a flat. It lowers it a half step. A sharp looks like a hashtag, raises a note a half step. So if I have a G, which is this note right here, I put a sharp next to it. Here's the G. Here's the G sharp. So the pitch goes up by a half a step. Remember, we talked about these being half steps, and 2 half steps equal a whole step. All right? So we have flat, sharp, and now a natural sign. The natural sign, if you L7, it's like this. The natural sign cancels the sharp or the flat. So here we played an A flat. Now, I didn't put another flat sign next to that note, but within that measure, any A's will be flatted. So I don't have to, it's assumed. This is an A flat, that'll be an A flat, and that's a G. For this note here, the G sharp, because I have 2 G's here, if I didn't have that natural sign there, all 3 of these would have been played G sharp. What I have the natural sign for is I only want 1 G sharp there, and I want then the next to be a G natural, so it cancels out that sharp. Now I put here an A flat and a G sharp, and on the keyboard, an A flat, here's an A and an A flat. And then here's a G and a G sharp. Well, I played that note, the flat and the sharp, and it sounded the exact same pitch. So we have 2 ways that we can call that note. It's either a G sharp or an A flat. And that is an enharmonic tone. It is the same pitch with a different name. And they're created by using the accidental signs. The flat, the sharp, and the natural. And these are called accidentals. I always think they're kind of like a little fork in the road. We're going along on our melody and all of a sudden we're changing something and it becomes an accident. I don't know. I use whatever kind of way to associate. Accidentals flat. When you get a flat tire, it lowers. Sharp, you gotta be sharp. You gotta be bright. You raise up. And natural, of course, just cancels everything out. So all of these alterations of notes are called accidentals. So this is an example of our treble clef, notes on the treble clef that create a melody with where they belong on the staff, how many beats they get, 1 beat each, 2 counts, 2 beats, 1 each, and then 2 counts. And there we have a melody made up of rhythms and pitches.